Welcome to the Healthy Reasonings podcast with Dr. Andre. You are now listening to your number one source for clear, unfiltered conversations about your health and wellness. Join us every Tuesday for success stories, educational topics, and interviews with wellness experts from around the world. You can listen to this podcast on your computer, phone, or any other electronic device that streams podcasts, or download each episode and listen to it on the go. Let's get started with today's episode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Healthy Reasonings podcast, your number one podcast for clear, unfiltered information about your health and wellness. And even though it's your health and wellness, remember that the advice that's being given is not intended to serve as medical advice specifically for you. If you have a medical condition, please seek attention from your practitioner of choice, your healthcare provider of choice, or if you don't have one, find one that you trust to tackle your specific medical concerns. Okay. I am so thrilled to announce that I continue to hit milestones with Spotify. If you're listening to this podcast episode on another platform, that's okay too. I check Spotify quite a bit, and it seems like we're hitting several milestones there. So I want to say thank you for your support. And along that same line, we have 2 voice notes that were sent in by 2 really supportive fans. I want to remind you that if you would like to send us a voice note, we've now made it a lot easier since the last episode. The last episode, we had an announcement that you can now send your voice messages to a WhatsApp line. And that WhatsApp line is as follows: 1-876-405-7831. That's 1-876-405-7831. And so we got 2 really interesting voice notes. Interestingly, both of them had to do with the episode we did on pesticides with Mr. Michael Ramsey. That one seemed to have generated quite a bit of discussion, and we're grateful. And as a result, we're hoping to have Michael on the show again sometime soon. We'll see how we can make that happen and when it's best to make it happen. So let's listen to these 2 voice notes coming from listeners Tamisha and Sanchia, respectively.
Oh my gosh, I love that man. I love him. I love him. He's so real. He's as straight as an arrow. I wonder though if there's a way. I don't know how strong he is in terms of making recommendations on a wide scale, government wise, to actually put a ban on these chemicals, because they get out of hand, you know. And that is where I was talking to somebody and asking him how can we go about getting this thing under control. So I don't know, talking to him since you know him, find out how you know, what is it that's preventing this ban, just like the other Caribbean countries were pretty much banned glyphosate. You know, why are we not following suit? You know, what's wrong?
Hey, just finished listening to the rest of the podcast. Wow. Like you have so many questions. Okay, yes, you keep a kitchen clean, but there's still roaches and insects that will come in from outside because, as you know, I'm in a townhouse complex. Sorry, but what do you do? Do you just clean with soap and water? Or do you leave a trail of detergent at the corners of your windows, or what? But yeah, where do we go from here? And better yet, now that we've inhaled all of this, what do we do to get rid of the toxins in our body?
All right. So you heard what they had to say. They really love the show, clearly, and they're expressing their excitement about what we discussed. And I don't have necessarily a specific answer to each question, But that's the whole purpose. We're trying to have a discussion around the topic and see what we can come up with as a consensus. Where I am an expert in the area, I will give my expert opinion. Otherwise, I'm trying my best to get the relevant experts in to provide their expertise, because we want to be the number one podcast for clear, unfiltered information about your health and wellness. All right. So let's make no bones about it. You would have seen the topic of today's episode already before you started listening. And today is October the 1st, 2024. And October the 1st is when a very difficult month starts for me as somebody who specializes in the treatment of and management of patients with cancer. It's tricky because October the 1st is usually signified worldwide as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And it gets a lot of attention, certainly, and with good reason, because it's very distressing to lose anyone because they have a diagnosis of cancer, any loved one or friend. But it's also distressing when that person is a woman, because that now has an impact on so many more people, especially if the loved one who passed away was a mother, a wife. You know how it is. There's so many more connections that would have been broken by the passing of this unfortunate person. And so I want to preface everything I say here by letting you know that by no means am I being insensitive to the legitimate suffering and pain and distress caused by the loss of someone who dies because they have cancer, or even before death. If they just have the diagnosis, that's already distress enough. I myself, I'm actually quite distressed. My job doesn't allow me necessarily to wear my emotions on my sleeve. But I also obviously have a lot of distress from time to time when I lose a patient, or just a general day-to-day activity of helping my patients. There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of concern about the future, concern about their families, etc. So I hope I've empathized enough, as well as emphasized how much I am sensitive to the legitimate pain and suffering that this disease causes. Having said that, today we're going to talk about the 4 phrases related to cancer treatment that I absolutely cannot stand. If we could remove these phrases or terms from our discussion around cancer, it would open up a whole new paradigm for us to have frank and open discussions. So let's just jump right in. Let's start with our number 1 phrase. And the number 1 phrase is anything that sounds like we have to fight cancer, or let's continue the fight against cancer. Our friend is bravely fighting cancer. What else is there? We are waging war on cancer, and so on. That just frustrates me. I'll tell you why. Any healthy reasoner and regular listener to this show will know that I've expressed time and time again that cancer is a disease. It is one of the most extreme diseases on the spectrum of dis-ease of the body, of the autonomic nervous system. And as a result, it is the body's attempt to try and create some semblance of a balance after being faced with one or more challenges. So therefore, cancer is not, in my opinion, it is not external to the body. It's not an enemy that needs to be defeated, but rather it is a signal that the body is not able to get back into balance and needs some assistance. And our response to this signal is not to fight the cancer, but it is to identify the root causes of the cancer and assist the person in restoring their body to health. So therefore, my patients are well aware that we do not fight cancer. Certainly when I'm taking care of them, we are not fighting cancer, but we are helping the patient heal from cancer. Very, very important distinction. Because if we decide to fight cancer, what we are doing is telling the person that they need to, think about all the things you have to do when you're fighting. You have to be very vigilant. You have to watch out for an attack at any time. You have to keep your energy up. You have to be able to see, hopefully, watch for your blind spots. There's so many different things that the word fight conjures up. Prepare for several blows. Prepare to be wounded. Prepare to be knocked out potentially. It's crazy. And most of my patients are already so distressed when they come to see me that it's totally unfair to then say to them, let's start the fight against cancer. So, and I have a question along that line before we go for a break. Before we go for the break, answer yourself this question if you doubt me. Have you ever heard somebody say that they're fighting diabetes? Or fighting high blood pressure, or fighting Parkinson's disease? No, nobody says that. But for some reason, we have given cancer this sudden amount of supreme power where it takes on a whole entity or identity of its own, which is just crazy. So I'm gonna take a couple deep breaths so that I don't get too carried away here. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back for you to answer me those questions.
In a world that moves too fast, it's easy to lose touch with what truly matters, your well-being. At Teshuva Wellness, we believe in a return to balance, to healing, to your best self. Our holistic approaches nurture not just your body, but also your soul. Whether you're seeking peace, energy, or a deeper connection, we're here to guide you every step of the way. Our medical experts specialize in holistic treatments for chronic diseases, ranging from autoimmune illnesses to cancer. Our treatments are safe, non-toxic, and effective. Because at Teshuva Wellness, your journey to wellness is our greatest commitment. Visit our website today at teshuvawellnessjae.com. or call 1-876-787-8197. That's 1-876-787-8197. Teshuva Wellness. Return to health. Return to your best self.
And we're back. So yeah, number one is anything that has to do with the fight against cancer. Fight against cancer. And number two is equally annoying to me. And it goes like this. Cancer is not a death sentence. Oh my goodness. I mean, I get it. Okay? I understand that the aim is to reassure the person that the you're reassuring the person that they don't have to die. And yeah, I understand that the intention is to give them assurance, but let's be realistic. Are we really reassuring somebody by telling them, even using the word death and sentence around them, even if you're saying it's not? Because the body, for those of you who understand motivational speaking and those kind of concepts, you'll know that the brain actually latches on to the words that you use anyway. So when you say it's not a death sentence, the brain actually latches on to the word death and sentence and not the word not. So that's one reason for not saying it. The second thing is we say it's not a death sentence, but yet we then go on to follow it up oftentimes with descriptions of what the treatment looks like. And I just think that it's just not the best way of communicating the plan, separate and apart from the fact that people have healed from cancer repeatedly and continue to do so I've witnessed many of those firsthand. So I just think there's no need for you to say that it's not a death sentence, and it's something I wish people would stop saying. How I would phrase it is, cancer is a disease which, just like any other, can be healed. How does that sound? All right, let's jump to number 3, and it's along the same line. Number 3 is when somebody is referred to as a cancer survivor. And I think you're picking up on the trend here, because the explanation for why this is not cool is the same as the first 2. And I really hope I'm not offending anybody, but, I'm going to speak the truth, unfiltered. And maybe you'll leave some comments if you don't like what I'm saying. And that's okay. We'll talk about it. But when you tell somebody, when you describe somebody as a cancer survivor, again, it comes back to that same description as if it were a war. And so, of course, my turn of phrase is to say that this patient has successfully healed from cancer. Because again, you don't hear anybody saying, oh, I'm a diabetes survivor. Oh, I'm a headache survivor. Oh, I'm a Parkinson's survivor. I'm a hypertension survivor. No, we don't do that, because naturally we think that those diseases are largely, can be controlled. Now, here's an interesting point along that same line, and I often share this one with my first-time patients. There's a quote that I need to look up, and maybe I'll insert it somewhere here if I remember. But one of my favorite books to read is called The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom. And The Hiding Place is a discussion, is a book, an autobiographical book, with one lady telling about her experiences as a Polish native, I believe. Poland was her home country, and their experiences when during World War II, I believe it was, and them having to hide Jews in their home and ultimately being discovered and taken to a concentration camp. It's a really interesting read. Whatever you may feel about that current affairs topic in the news right now, I am not talking about that. I'm talking about this particular scenario. And the scenario is that early in the book, this lady, her name is Corrie. I think her name is actually not Corrie, but that's her nickname. And she speaks specifically about her sister being diagnosed with diabetes. And I'm going to look for the exact phrase. Hopefully I can put it in the show notes, or if I remember it, to put it in here. But she says something to the effect of, my sister has been diagnosed with diabetes, and so she is confined to the back room of the house because essentially she was saying she's terminally ill and they're expecting her to die. Now, we're in 2024, and so that description sounds almost laughable to say, oh, you have diabetes, so we have to put you in a back room and wait for you to die. But it's laughable now because time has passed and enough experience has been had with patients with that disease to the point where they have been able to identify the cause of the disease and also a suitable way of assisting the body to heal. And so we are looking at this maybe almost a century later. And so it looks ridiculous. Wow, diabetes and you're terminally ill? Come on. My uncle, my aunt, and all of my cousins have diabetes. I'm just giving an example. My family doesn't. So it sounds laughable, but look at it. It's not just diabetes. We look at something like tuberculosis. Again, even members of the aristocracy who were diagnosed with this disease had to be taken to areas called, I think, sanitariums. And again, the expectation prior to the discovery of anti-tuberculosis drugs, the expectation was that they were going to die and it was only a matter of time. And again, now we hardly give much concern to the possibility of developing tuberculosis for several reasons. And even on the off chance that somebody does, it's usually expected that they will be able to heal successfully with the right medical attention. Which brings me by a good segue to another disease, which is human immunodeficiency virus-caused disease, or HIV, and its attendant consequences. And I distinctly remember growing up as a child and hearing about a basketballer, very popular basketballer, who contracted HIV. And of course, even though I was a young boy at the time, I was wise enough to know that that was a death sentence. And yet, by the next season, I believe it was, the news broke that he had been placed on some very good treatment, and they were reassuring the public and the NBA in general that it was entirely safe for him to play again amongst other players. And we've seen that to be true, because since that time, we have seen where HIV and AIDS is no longer as much of a, hear the words, death sentence as it once was, because people are generally aware of the fact that it can be treated or at least controlled with the help of specific medications. And so along that same line, I believe that it's only a matter of time before each successive generation finds a way to treat diseases, whether communicable infectious diseases or otherwise, that the previous generation or generations had no idea what to do with. And the same, I believe, is going to be true for cancer eventually. I'm doing my part to assist the patients that I meet, but I believe that I'm a part of a larger group of people across the world who are recognizing the same patterns and are looking at the disease as something that can be healed. Good. So I think that was number we did fighting cancer survival. Cancer is not a death sentence. Oh my goodness. So we're gone 3, and I said I wanted to give you 4. I'm thinking that I'm probably going to end up with 5 at this rate. But before we talk about that, let's go for a quick break.
Healthy Reasoners. You asked and we listened. After enjoying today's episode, you can now send Dr. Andre your comments via WhatsApp. That's right, WhatsApp your comments or voice messages to us at 1-876-405-7831. Once again, that's 1-876-405-7831. We are excited to hear from you.
And we're back. I just love saying that. I don't know why I always say it. And we're back. Yeah, so we've given you 3 of the phrases that I dislike the most surrounding the journey that my patients have with cancer. I think these phrases should be kicked out, thrown into the wastebasket, and wrapped up in, compacted, taken to a recycling area and not ever recycled. I don't know what needs to be done with them, but they need to be destroyed and never used again. Which brings me to number 4. And number 4 really gets me, but it's going to be an interesting one. Number 4 is when you'll hear, whether in a movie or otherwise, the statement, "Oh, it seems the cancer has returned." Oh, how that annoys me. And I really hope you can hear my heart here. I'm being entirely humble, but at the same time, I'm upset about the needless emotional distress that patients have to go through. So let's go back to the principle of cancer and we'll understand why this phrase annoys me. Well, we understand that cancer is a far extreme of a spectrum of dis-ease or imbalance of the autonomic nervous system, the body's main regulatory area or regulatory circuit. And as a result, the body has made several attempts to come back into balance and has been unsuccessful. And so the closest it can get to balance is what we see from outward appearances as cancer. And we have various ways of testing to confirm that this is the case. But the fact is, what we are seeing, regardless of how we identify it, is we're seeing an extreme level of dysfunction or dysregulation of the body. Now, we spoke about several episodes back, we spoke about the fact that any effective cancer treatment protocol must have 4 distinct areas of treatment. 1, it must be able to, whether directly or through the help of the body, destroy the cancer cells. That's 1. 2, it must provide enough nutrients and raw material and fuel for the body to repair the damaged areas that are throughout the body, damaged cells and so on, damaged organs. 3, there must be something to promote and support and facilitate adequate detoxification of the body to get rid of the old waste that preceded the diagnosis, as well as the new waste that comes from destroying the cancer cells and all the repair that's going on. 4 is that we must address the patient's emotional and spiritual state, because that is critical as well to their healing. So we have 4 ways, four parts of a treatment protocol for cancer that must be a part of a successful treatment. So it stands to reason, therefore, that if all 4 are not followed, what we are quite possibly going to see in this patient is outwardly or via the lab tests, there may be an indication of a lab test, imaging, examining the patient, how the patient feels and so on. There may be a temporary return to balance, and we say hip hip hooray, the patient has been treated successfully, and we move on and we say, we'll just follow the patient up and keep doing the scans and we'll just monitor you, which is fine. However, if the patient had not had a cancer treatment protocol that had all of these 4 parameters involved, the likelihood is that with time, the body is going to slide back into that state of extreme dysfunction that was previously there, which we call cancer. And at some point, the patient is going to present again with evidence of cancer. Not because the cancer went away and came back, but because the underlying cause was not appropriately treated. And of course, the body would try to regulate as best as it could, but after a time, it would have to be forced to slip back into imbalance. So, for example, a treatment protocol that only focused on killing cancer cells is totally negating the need for fuel, nutrition, and so on for the cells to repair. No detoxification implemented, and the patient's emotional and spiritual health has not been attended to, especially if the circumstances lie in the spiritual and emotional, and those are not corrected. For example, a situation at home, a limiting belief, trauma that is ongoing, or there's something reminding the patient of the trauma. All of these things are quite capable of allowing the body to slip back into imbalance. So the cancer did not go away and come back. The cancer has not returned, but the body has slipped back into imbalance because the cancer was never really treated to begin with. And I know that this is a what they call a heavy discussion, but we are starting a month where we're going to hear these phrases tossed around all the time, and it's just, for some, as a matter of fact, I know several people who totally avoid this month altogether. I actually try to do as few talks as possible, because at some point my name and my message is going to be lost in the midst of all of the flurry and frenzy to fight cancer, or to highlight cancer survivors, or to hear the stories of the of the survivors, to hear the stories of those who are still battling. And I get it. It helps emotionally, but it really doesn't help long term. Let me leave that alone. So I gave you 4 distinct phrases that I really don't like. And I think I've given you suitable, better ways to talk about this thing. And let me see if I can come up with a number 5, because I really intended to just give you 4. Oh my goodness. Wow. So how about this one? I know that should I do it? All right, I'll do it. So it's convenient to say during this month that there's a specific test that's always recommended in Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And the recommendation is 5 minutes could save your life. And I don't have a problem with that. I do recommend the test to some of my patients to have proper screening done. But here's the problem. The problem is that sometimes patients will hear horror stories about people who have done that particular test. And as a result, they may not want to go and do it, even if 5 minutes could save your life. Because again, what we're doing is we are equating or we're putting the two concepts together. We're putting the concept of imaging the breast alongside the possibility of your life being lost. And like I said earlier, even though we are emphasizing that you'll be saving a life, you are bringing up the possibility of death. Now, I'm not an expert in PR, so I'm not going to necessarily try to suggest how PR and communication specialists should communicate this. But I do want to draw attention to the fact that it is a serious problem, because certainly in my country, unfortunately, I've spoken to patient after patient who cannot be convinced to go and have the test done. And so maybe it is time for us to think around that some more, and not just to pat ourselves on the shoulder to say, well, we got X amount done this year, and so that's good. So I went there, and that's okay. So those of you who follow my wellness center, you know that what we encourage instead is a proactive approach to breast health monitoring, which uses an entry point to the journey that makes it easier for people to take charge of their breast health. And so without any pain, without any squeezing, without any radiation, these patients can come in, have an evaluation done, which is not, again, it's not tied to whether or not they have cancer. We're not searching for a lump. We're not searching for, what's the phrase? We're not trying to save anybody's life, but we are trying to make our women more proactive about their breast health, so that the discussion is not just centered around breast cancer, but it is centered around good health all around, and continuous monitoring of your breast health without necessarily having to think about the possibility of breast cancer. Healthy Reasoners, you have successfully, as we say in Jamaica, drawn my tongue. My friend was teasing me the other day to say I'm being so careful on this podcast that it's like I'm walking a tightrope. But the truth is, I know that my healthy reasoners are just that, healthy reasoners. And so you can read between the lines when you hear me speaking. And so I can speak clearly without speaking clearly, and I will continue to do so until I believe that we have all built up enough momentum for us to have a safe, transparent, and totally raw discussion about some of these things without necessarily, obviously we're not here to antagonize anything. I applaud the efforts of all the well-meaning corporations, entities, and private citizens and so on, governmental agencies who are trying to bring awareness to breast cancer and other cancers. However, it doesn't change how I feel about the phrases I've said up before. I don't like them. I think we need to revisit them because they are sending the wrong message. And as somebody who has seen patients heal completely from cancer, I think that that is a message that we could start sending. It's not false hope. I don't want anybody to tell me that it's false hope. It's not, because we have multiple patients who are still alive 3-4 years later, having been diagnosed with stage 4 this and stage 4 that and pancreatic this and so on. So I don't want to hear that it's false hope. I could have said that years ago, but then the patients are still alive. So let's start talking to people who have successfully healed from cancer. And as a matter of fact, one of the striking things about my patients is not only have they healed, but oftentimes they look so healthy that you wouldn't even be able to tell that they had ever been ill. And these are the images, I think. These are the discussions. These are the people that we need to be bringing to the fore. Not people who have survived, but people who have healed and in fact thrived. I've said enough. I'm hoping my editor doesn't edit out any of this, because I think it needs to be said. I encourage you, as you would have heard in the previous ad, to reach out to us by sending a WhatsApp to 1-876-405-7831. Please don't call the number. Send a WhatsApp to 1-876-405-7831. You can send a message. You can send a voice message, and one of our team will be able to respond to you. And who knows, you might find your voice note being a part, or your comment being a part of our next episode. It has been a pleasure to talk with you again, and I look forward to next week for the next episode of the Healthy Reasonings podcast. God bless you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Healthy Reasonings podcast. Remember to subscribe to this podcast so you can be updated as soon as new episodes are ready. If you have a question, send us a voice note on WhatsApp or a WhatsApp message. The WhatsApp number is 1-876-405-7831. For more information or to become a sponsor, please email wellnessdocjamaica@gmail.com. See you soon.